Now, US President Donald Trump has announced he is considering cutting short the 50-day deadline he set earlier for Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. Speaking at his Turnberry Golf Resort in Scotland, Trump expressed disappointment in Putin's actions, particularly after repeated ceasefire talks failed. Earlier in July, President Trump warned that if President Putin did not reach a deal with Ukraine by early September, he would impose 100% secondary tariffs on Russia and any countries continuing to trade with it. These tariffs would significantly impact nations like India and China, who maintain trade relations with Moscow despite existing Western sanctions. Trump has criticized Putin's continued military actions, specifically recent missile strikes on Ukrainian cities, which he said have resulted in civilian casualties. He also stated that he might reduce the 50-day ultimatum, as he believed he already knew the outcome of this situation. Here's what he had to say.
We've had discussions, you and I have had discussions. We thought we had that settled numerous times. And then President Putin goes out and starts launching rockets into some city like Kiev and kills a lot of people in a nursing home or whatever. You have bodies lying all over the street. And I say, that's not the way to do it. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number, because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen.
Now, for this discussion, we're joined by Raymond Vickery. He's a former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Raymond, for joining us today. Good to see you. Now, President Donald Trump has suggested that he is willing to decrease this deadline that was given earlier, which was 50 days to Russia. Do you think it still holds any impact? Is this realistic for this kind of pressure from President Trump to push Putin towards a ceasefire, according to you?
Well, thanks very much for having me. It seems to me that President Trump is finally waking up to the fact that you can't conduct business with President Putin like a real estate deal, that it's a transaction and one-off. You may recall that he said that the Ukraine invasion by Russia was going to be solved on day one in the White House. And of course, that hasn't happened, and it's a completely unrealistic way to approach foreign affairs. I think the awakening of Trump to the reality of what Putin is doing, and that is really a resort to the old-time imperialism of being able to invade and control territory, is welcome. But what is required here is a return to some semblance of international cooperation on this problem, which affects the peace and prosperity of the entire world. Europe, India, all of the great democracies have a stake in this, and it takes a coordinated approach. Now, just to say that you're going to impose secondary tariffs and that's going to end it, that's not realistic. You have to deal with those who've been reluctant to cut off Putin in regard to income from oil, such as India, and you have to be able to have a coordinated approach. So this is some progress in the mindset of President Trump, but it is certainly not sufficient in order to solve this problem, which affects the peace and prosperity of the entire world.
And Raymond, I would also like to ask, how realistic is his threat to impose 100% secondary tariffs on countries trading with Russia, such as India, where I am at? And what impact could this have on nations like India?
Well, it's not realistic at all. What has to happen, and I'm all in favor of cutting off income that Putin is using for this invasion, but you can't do it just by saying we're going to impose the tariffs and it's my way or the highway. What you have to do is get cooperation with India, with Japan, even China, if you will, to try to be able to rein this in. It remains to be seen whether or not Trump would actually follow through on any of this. And what he's doing is just creating additional uncertainty. But that seems to be his stock in trade, to try to create chaos and then somehow claim victory out of the chaos. So what one would hope would happen is that Trump would coordinate with Prime Minister Modi, other leaders of the world, in order to have a coalition which deters Putin from the path which he's on. That's going to be much more effective than the kind of up and down threats one day, extensions the next, in order to try to have a system in the international arena.
And Raymond, also now going back to the 50-day that's shortened now to 10 to 12 days, what are the potential risks and consequences of this deadline again? Like you said that, threatening and then taking it back, and threatening and then taking it back. Do you think there is now a trust issue between President Trump and Putin, where like before they seemed to have good relations?
Well, the seeming good relations were really a mirage. President Putin is very much in the mode of a 19th century imperialist. And that is, he wants to restore what he conceives to be Russian greatness by resort to the old-time way of doing that. And whether it be Alexander the Great, Peter the Great, the British Empire, and that is you invade and take over a country, territory which you want. This is the mindset. The supposed good relations between Trump and Putin certainly didn't affect Putin's way of thinking. The problem here is the one of inconsistency and the room for miscalculation. And miscalculation, when you're talking about the world's two largest nuclear powers, is incalculable in terms of the downside. And so what one hopes would happen is a return to the principles of the United Nations Charter, to work with others, yes, to provide sanctions, but as you need sticks, you also need carrots in order to try to resolve this and have peace and stability. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is really the first breach of the principles which were agreed to after World War II of non-intervention by one state against another. Sure, we've had problems in regard to terrorism, we've had all kinds of economic discontinuities, but this is really a singular action on behalf of Putin and requires coordinated action among the democracies of the world to try to rein it in. This business of, well, we'll shorten the deadline has no effect.
Thank you very much, Raymond, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we will come back to you for our discussion. Now we move on to our next news.